Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host Ashwin. I'm joined by Varun. And Varun, can you believe it? The IPL just ended. We had a World Cup 2 years ago. We had one, I guess, last year, 2 years ago. We just keep having World Cups, but it is Cricket World Cup season again. Are you ready for it? Has it hit you?
I mean, we've created our teams and fantasy and stuff like that, and you are starting to get excited. I think the format is a little different this year. If I recall last year or the year before, it basically was a certain set of teams playing and the top two make it to the real World Cup or whatever the right word is. But this time it's broadened a lot more. And so it's going to be interesting because, while some people might think the games are going to be boring, you are going to see a few upsets. And the way this table works is that one upset could hurt you badly. So I think that is what is going to be the watch out. And otherwise, Ashwin, it's in your part of the world for the first time.
I know time zones are fantastic for me, for any of our North American listeners. It's great. I mean, it's very interesting and an understandable but odd choice that we have both morning night games and night games, because the morning games for us here are prime time in Asia. So you're trying to prioritize the Indian market and Pakistani, Sri Lankan, etc. And the evening games are to prioritize it for local cards. So it is funny that you have both. It's unusual. I don't recall having seen that before. But yeah, so Varun, we'll spend a little bit of time today. This was supposed to be our big World Cup preview, but because of scheduling, we weren't able to get it done coming straight off the IPL. And so at the time of recording this, 2 games have been played. The third game, actually, Namibia versus Oman, is on right now at the time of recording this. And so we'll cover kind of early stages. We'll talk through a little bit about the groups, predictions, etc. And then we'll actually, obviously, being the Indian cricket podcast that we are, spend most of our time talking what we think will happen and a little bit about what we learned from the warm-up game that happened, India versus Bangladesh. So, Varun, you mentioned the last World Cup and the change, right? The first thing is the format and the key difference between the 2022 T20 World Cup and the and this one, right? So the 2022 World Cup was a 16-team World Cup, and this year is 20. But they had a first round with 8 teams, of which 4 got through. So you kind of had this qualifier couple of weeks before. Then you had the Super 12, and that's when the big 8 teams, right? Australia, England, New Zealand, India, Pakistan, South Africa, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. Then they got involved. But your Ireland, Sri Lanka, Netherlands, Zimbabwe got involved earlier. And then they were the 4 who made it, and then you had 2 groups. But let me pause and ask, this year we have a lot of teams making their debuts, right? The US, Papua New Guinea. I mean, you have new sides playing World Cups for the first time. What is your take on the format to have 20 teams, 4 groups, 5 teams in each, and then a Super 8's coming kind of out of that?
It's an interesting one because, you feel that it's going to be boring to watch these teams. But the first game was like a USA versus Canada. And as a cricket fan, if, the T20 format allows you to get invested for a short period of time for a good game. And I was surprised that I actually watched that whole game because I had not said or thought that I would do that. So what I'm saying is, for a true cricket fan, I think this is it's a great thing. I think for people who just show up to watch, or a medium cricket fan, I don't think they're going to like it. But as we're recording, I've got Namibia, Oman on. I know who my captain is, my vice captain is, so I'm following it, right? Like it just started a little earlier. I think, in a sense, the pressure to watch every game is off, so you can start that a little bit later in the tournament. But I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think fundamentally you also have fans of the game, like we are, like you said, are trying to grow the game. You want to get it to more countries, but it doesn't get to more countries unless you have them playing big events. And so there's pros and cons of every approach. I'm actually okay with it. We will see. We'll do the postmortem after. And if you have one-sided results with basically the most predictable possible 8 teams getting through to the Super 8s, then maybe it wasn't great, but maybe it's still worth it for the exposure, for the young kid from Namibia to get to play, or I guess Namibia has actually played before, but the young kids from Papua New Guinea and Uganda to get to play against Virat. That may be worth it itself, right? I
mean, just the second game was West Indies versus Papua New Guinea, right? Now, we were messaging and I slept after the first innings. And I said, I got to catch up on my sleep. And I woke up and saw that West Indies won it in the 19th over.
It was close, yeah.
And it was close. So my point is, if it is that close, then why not? Because it's entertainment, it's good cricket. And I think what they've done is smartly, they've not stretched this out over 3 months, right? They're doing this actually within 29 days, 3 games a day. And so it's great.
Yeah, multiple games a day, I think, is going to make it really exciting. There are on weekends, there are times when matches overlap, so it's going to be just a lot of cricket going on. And so as we look to kind of preview it I could spend this entire episode, as I know you could, and many of our listeners probably want us to, we could spend the entire episode talking about India and the 11. But I want to quickly kind of run through what the groups are. We've obviously seen some results of, and for our listeners, many of them will know I live in the US now, but I've lived in Canada for many years. So the US-Canada game was a hard one to watch. I will admit I was cheering for Canada, but it was not a good result. So pretty tough. I was actually watching it with people saying 190 plus is probably a pretty good score on this wicket, I think. And Canada ended up making up 194, but then just got absolutely obliterated.
I think I read that it's the third highest chase
in internationals. Yeah, I mean,
something like that. That's
because Hyderabad's season has skewed. So somebody who doesn't actually know anything about cricket, I was watching the game with them and they were asking me about it, and I was like, normally I'd say 180 plus. It depends obviously on the ground and the pitch and the conditions, size of the boundary, all that, but generally 180 plus is a good score. Maybe 220, 230 is a solid defendable score. And then I paused and I said, wait, that wasn't true till Hyderabad had this season. They did. Till like even a few months ago, you would argue 180 to 200 is a solid T20 score. So anyway, the US-Canada are in Group A. Obviously, the other teams in that group are India, Pakistan, Ireland. Without doing a full preview of India yet, which we'll cover in the second half, what is your take on kind of this group overall? How is India going to approach the matches against the US and Canada? Ireland obviously has some fantastic players, has pulled off some upsets before. So you think talk me through it and then talk me through who you think was going to make it out of the group, remembering to get out of each group.
Yeah, so I think India hasn't had the best memories of this part of the world. They've been knocked out before in the similar group stage. So I think they're going to come at it with kind of very serious attitude. I don't think they're going to take anything lightly. And they better not, because they haven't won a trophy in a long time. So you cannot take any opponent lightly. Mm-hmm. The USA's NRR is fantastic right now.
Yeah.
So I am going to go out on a limb and say India is definitely going to make it. Pakistan is also going to make it.
Okay, I thought you were going to go out on a limb and say Pakistan doesn't go.
But what I'm saying is there will be some tension about Pakistan's NRR versus USA's. And it's not that easy a group. Like a lot of people must be thinking, oh, this is the easiest group. But yeah, trust me, it's not, because Ireland is also decent.
Yeah, so Pakistan plays the US first up, and I think Pakistan will win, but it'll be closer than we're expecting. But I think the final group game for Pakistan is against Ireland. And obviously with our bias coming in, we're just assuming India coasts. But let's assume they do, the top-ranked T20 side in the world. Pakistan versus Ireland will be the final group game, and I'm with you. I think there will be some results that need to go teams' ways, and Pakistan will make it. But I think could get.
That's just my gut feel.
It's a good prediction. All right, and we will double click on India in a lot more detail. Our second group is really interesting, right? England and Australia obviously headlining that one. Namibia and Oman playing at the moment as we speak, and Scotland rounding that group out. Now, Scotland have played World Cups before; they have created upsets before. Anything exciting going to come here, or is this is actually probably the one where I'm saying is most predictable?
This is the easiest group. So yeah. Australia, England, for sure. And I think this is the easiest group. They've gotten lucky. Like, you throw in Afghanistan in this group and the game changes completely, right?
Yeah.
So it's even a Bangladesh or a Sri Lanka. So I think they'll be thanking their stars. They've got it easy. These top two teams, it's quite good for them.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I mean, Namibia's got some decent players. David Visa obviously used to play for South Africa and has played plenty of T20I cricket. And as I said his name, he took a wicket, I think. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, although he's in my fantasy team, I'm sure he's in everybody's because he's a great pick with both bat and ball. But yeah, I think there could be some interesting results in this group. But I'm with you. If England and Australia don't escape this group, it'll be a huge, huge upset. Right. Group C. Very, very interesting here, right? So West Indies is the joint host nation. New Zealand obviously haven't won a T20 World Cup before. West Indies have, but New Zealand has made plenty of finals in big ICC events, even recently. And then you have Afghanistan, who had some very, very high representation in the IPL. I mean, you start going down the list, and I don't have in front of me, but Gurbaz and Rashid and Noor, and you have a lot of guys who just played the IPL as well. So those are the big three, Uganda and Papua New Guinea, both making their debuts in the T20 World Cup format. Papua New Guinea obviously already got a loss, but Varun, how do you feel about this one? And let me add on that as part of our preview, the West Indies, like you said, beat Papua New Guinea, but we did it in the 20th or the 19th over, which really potentially hurt their net run rate.
Yeah, and I think that is what they're going to be really kicking themselves because, I mean, Afghanistan is a premier team today, and especially in T20. In ODI, they looked good. They got beaten by one Maxwell. They got beaten by a one-legged Maxwell.
Like a freak innings, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But in T20, they are better than they are at ODIs. So what I'm saying is the West Indies had to chase down that total in like 10 overs for them to be very comfortable. They didn't do that, and I think that's going to be hard. This group, I really cannot. It's going to be very hard for me to predict the top two. I'm going to say West Indies and New Zealand, but that's just because probably of like the history of what I've seen. But Afghanistan is going to challenge them, man.
So I'm calling West Indies because it's home and they're a phenomenal T20 side in the shop, and Afghanistan. And that's a big call to leave New Zealand out of
New Zealand has been the semis every time for the last
10 but look
years.
at their squad from a T20 format standpoint compared to West Indies and Afghanistan. And listen, it's predictions. All predictions are wrong at some point, right? Somebody's right, somebody's wrong.
In the IPL, we got all predictions wrong.
We had one playoff team, I think. Each of us had called Rajasthan. Nobody else called any of the other three. But yeah, super interesting. It's going to be a fascinating group. I think this is probably, with the West Indies, New Zealand, and Afghanistan, probably the most interesting, most high-risk group.
But just to call out, sorry, I'm not trying to ding your predictions, but the squad is the same squad that has made all the previous semi-finals.
Yeah, but what did they do in the 2022 World Cup? Do you remember?
I mean, they were definitely semis.
All right, we're going to look this up really quickly. But
I'm just saying, you've got Kane Williamson, Finn Allen, Chapman, Phillips.
This is why you need DJ, because we don't remember anything in this.
Rachin, Santner, Devon Conway, Bolt, Ferguson, Matt Henry, Ish Sodhi, Tim Saudi. Like,
yeah, they made the semis.
I told you.
And lost to Pakistan in the semis, who ended up losing to England in the final. So. Yeah, I mean, fair. But the fact that they have the same guys and 2 years later, I don't know, I got to come up with that.
You can't, you walked into that, but that's okay. It's a prediction.
No, I think, listen, I think the West Indies, you could argue, honestly, that on paper, New Zealand and Afghanistan are great sides, are both great sides too. But the West Indies is a phenomenal T20 side. They have match winners. And I think Afghanistan does have match winners too. So it's going to be very interesting. You have to feel for Uganda and Papua New Guinea. Right. Group D, the final group, South Africa, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, who have basically become these incredibly intense rivals now. The Nagin derbies, as DJ likes to call it. But Sri Lanka, South Africa, Bangladesh, the Netherlands absolutely do not write off the Netherlands. They have a fantastic team. They've delivered some upsets before. And then Nepal, who I think they're making their T20 World Cup debut. Obviously, big news is that they're going to be, I think the latest is they're going to be without Sandeep Lamichandane, whose visa did not get approved on the second try as well. So big news, and obviously a big star for them. But how do you see this group kind of playing out?
So South Africa is top for me. Like, I genuinely think they're a solid T20 team, and I think group stages pressure is lower. So South Africa is definitely there. Man, I just can't tell between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. I'm going to pick Sri Lanka because I saw some recent series that Bangladesh and the US played, and I think US won that series 2-1.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, and so to me...
And then the warm-up game that happened, which we're going to talk about in the second half, but yeah.
And so to me, it's just... things are probably not looking good for Bangladesh. So I'm going to go with Sri Lanka and South Africa.
So I'm going to echo that in terms of the prediction. I will say among the grand scheme of the big kind of 8 teams of this World Cup, I think South Africa, this is going to be famous last words, I think South Africa are going to be the ones who underdeliver. I think on paper, they have such a phenomenal side. I mean, what is their top order going to be? It's going to be quick.
The top order is one thing. It's that 4-5-6, right? It's David Miller, Clarkson, and Tristan Stubbs.
And Markram.
Right,
3, 4, 5,
he's
6,
not the best T20 player.
Yeah.
But I'm saying just think of 4-5-6. Like, that
I
is a
agree
very
with
solid
you.
team.
Yeah, but I think they're going to fall short with their bowling. Rabada is good, but the conditions don't really suit him. Obviously, he's great. Anik Nokia has had a horrendous. I mean, we lived it as Delhi fans. And then you start looking at spin options, and again, Shamsi is an excellent bowler, but I think Shamsi and Maharaj both. But I think that they just feel like they're a team that are going to. Basically, for me, if Klassen doesn't deliver, I feel like this team falls short. Quinton de Kock coming off of horrendous form. To your point, Markram not being a big game player. Tristan Stubbs is the one who, if he gets a lot of games or gets to play all the games, he could show up. But we unfortunately don't have time to preview the South Africa team in depth. Varun, so you're calling no upsets get into the Super 8s then?
Yeah, I'm going to call no upsets. I think I'm just going to call that these are the who I think.
So you're picking the safest route. Okay, fine. I think if there's one upset I would call, it could actually be the Netherlands in this group. I could see South Africa and the Netherlands going through. It would be very, very tough for Sri Lanka and Bangladesh both to miss out. But let's just say this. Do you think, you've made your predictions, do you think there will be one upset anywhere in any one of the groups? You don't have to say which it is, but do you think there will be, or do you really think the top 8 teams in world cricket will go through?
I think because there are 5 teams, I think the top 8 will go in. I think if it was 4 teams, I think an upset would have been possible.
Okay, fair. All right. So while we're doing predictions, let's wrap up with who are going to make the Final Four and who's going to win this World Cup. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
I don't want you to feel like you're always going first. All right. So I have to say India. I will always say India makes it.
India does always make it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Final Four, yeah. I'm going to say Australia. As much as it pains me, I'm going to say Australia. I'm going to say West Indies because it's home. And they looked shaky a little bit today, but I'm still calling it because it's a home World Cup. And I'll round it out with England. I think England has a point to prove in this format, and I think they're gonna want to defend. So I think those are my 4.
Yeah, so I am going to just replace England with South Africa.
But you're calling West Indies too. Interesting.
Yeah. But so I'm going to replace England with South Africa only because I think England is very good on like 200 plus wickets.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're really good at 160 wickets.
So, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, so I just a gut feel. But honestly, man, this is so hard because New Zealand could show up. Pakistan, I haven't followed enough, but they could also show up. So this is a very hard one. But yeah, I think our top 4 are pretty similar.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, this is, again, the thing with making the predictions, we're going to get some right, and we're going to get some hate in the YouTube comments because we got some wrong, and that's the beauty of making predictions. But last question on the overall group, and again, we would have loved to dive into this in a lot more detail, but time permitting, we're going to try to focus more on India. Overall thoughts on the venues and the locations, right? So the US obviously gets 3 cities, which is great for American or at least the expat community in America, right? So New York, Dallas, and Fort Lauderdale, or outside of Miami, are the 3 cities that are going to the host games. And then obviously most of the big games later in the tournament are in the West Indies, as ideally they should be. What is your thought overall on the kind of approach the ICC took on getting co-hosts and having the US show up, and kind of how you saw the warm-up game? I mean, the warm-up game in New York is claiming India had more than 15,000 fans show up to it. So what is your overall assessment of that decision?
I think it's good. I think the US needs to get into something like cricket. Once they do it, I don't think they'll make a success of it. I still don't think they've made a success of soccer, right? But since Messi has showed up, look at what has changed, right? So what I'm saying is you could get a lot of nothing stopping Suresh Rainas and Robin Uthapas of the world coming to US and playing, in a big league, having retired. So I think overall good. I do think the LA Olympics cricket is going to be there. So it's a very nice kind of 4-year segue to that for the US. And overall, nothing to complain about. I think when it gets into the kind of business end of the tournament, they're moving it to West Indies, which is a cricketing nation. So overall, quite happy with it.
Yeah, and we're going to take a quick break, but this will be a good segue. The warm-up game that we watched in the first couple of games have not actually done nearly as much as I said they would for spinners. They've been kind of very, very interesting pitches. They've been, some have been a little bit slow. Some have helped, like in the India game, Arshdeep and Bumrah, which again, I'm jumping ahead, got a lot of seam movement. And that is not exactly how teams have built their squads. So very, very interesting. I'm with you on the US hosting it. I think it'll be good. It should be interesting. I hope the stadiums are full. I know, at least personally as a fan, a lot of the tickets to the big games got sold out immediately and are now reselling for 5, 10, 20x the base price, which is frustrating, but that's just me as a fan. Varun, we're going to take a very quick break. We will come back. We will talk about India's match against Bangladesh and what it means for India over the rest of the tournament. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Varun, you're supposed to do the gestures that DJ does because he's not here today. And if you're on a podcast app, give us 5 stars. Send us a message. We're at One Tip One Hand on all social media. We're at onetiponehand@gmail.com. Just reach out anytime. We love to hear from you. So Varun, I got into it a little bit, but we're going to preview Team India for the World Cup. We've talked it a little bit. The squads are now out, and we got a lot of insight, I think, from the warm-up match that happened and how India approached it. So first off, talk to me about the game. Yeah.
Just before we talk about the team, Rohit after the match came out and said, "Oh, we just wanted to give everyone a chance. The batting order is not fixed." And I'm just like, man, but it's one day away from the start of the
So, but is that mind games? I'm okay if the skipper is playing mind games. I'm okay with that.
Who cares? Who cares if the punt bats at 3 or 5? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was.
And so just run us through the key choices they made. Jaiswal didn't bat.
Yeah. So Samson came out to open, and I found that very funny, right? But I think it was just about giving him X number of balls. Like, you go out there and make sure that you play enough balls. Don't come in at number 5 and then play only 10 balls or something, right? So that happened. Jaiswal did not bat. Pant. So I'm trying to think, how do I go through this? So Pant after that, then Sky, then Dubey, then Pandya, then Jaddu. So pretty much, to me, it was insightful as to what they're going to do on Wednesday when they play their first game. I think you just swap out Kohli with Samson. And so Kohli and Rohit open, Pant at 3. It's a great proposition because if one of them gets out early, Pant has the field in. And I mean, he was playing some incredible shots, right?
Did Pant bat his way into starting for Team India in the warm-up, or was it the IPL? Because arguably Samson had a better IPL.
No, I think this warm-up, he's just batted him up because Samson batted so poorly. He was 1 of 6.
6, yeah.
And it was just terrible. Like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I was stunned. And then Pant took the gloves in the second innings.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty clear. Now, maybe the lefty thing has been a part. Maybe Samson always gets the short end of the stick. But the point is, you've got to warm up against Bangladesh, which is a zero pressure game. You should have just piled on, right, the runs.
Yeah, so India ends up making 182 for 5. I'll run through kind of how the game went down. Rohit looked scratchy. Didn't look very good, to be totally honest. Hit a 1 nice 6, couple boundaries. Pant was batting phenomenally. And did you see the no-look kind of flick? I mean, he just hit some absolutely phenomenal shots. Sky came in and hit some big runs. And then Hardik. Talk to me about Hardik, Varun. Yeah. He struggled. Obviously, we talked a little bit about his off the field.
Captain of our Bakwaskar 11.
But, and then 3 sixes and 3 balls, right?
It was so good to see, man. I was so excited. I actually got up off of my seat when I saw the third 6 because I was just like, yes, this is what you used to play 5 years ago. Get back to it.
Is it just kind of one innings and you don't need to read too much into it? Or is it a little bit of, hey, no booing from the crowds, no pressure of captaincy and of having ousted Rohit from his captaincy, etc., and he just has a weight lifted off his shoulders when he plays for India?
Yeah, I just think the dressing room vibe is different. The crowd is different. Nobody's focused on him. There's enough other people to kind of focus on. And so I think it was just honestly, we've always said this, he's the first name on the sheet, right?
Yeah.
So I belong here, I deserve it, and I'm going to show you why. That's pretty much what it is. So he needs to keep batting like that because I think the Indian management is really looking at Dubey to score between overs 8 and 15. So with Dubey having that role, I think Pandya has to play 15 to 20 and make sure he accelerates.
Yeah, very interesting. And I'll run through the rest of the game, and then I want to come back and ask you what it means for Team India and first game against Ireland, etc. But so in a chase, I mean, what was your take of kind of Bangladesh's approach and obviously results? I mean, to fall 60 runs short in a game where You can bat as many players as you want. India was trying out different bowlers. Shivam bowled 3 overs, picked up 2 wickets. I mean,
a decent economy too, right?
Yeah, fantastic, right? Yeah. He bowled really tight. And so obviously Arshdeep was the big news, right? He opened the bowling, picked up a wicket on the 4th ball, picked up a wicket again 7 or 8 balls later. I mean, it's very difficult to not ask you about selection, but overall a great day, right? New pitch, several, Rohit had said they had enough time to adjust their body clocks, etc. But pretty good to see in a warm-up, even the team looking pretty strong and together, right?
Yeah, it was, man. And we tried out 8 bowlers, right? So again, Jaiswal didn't do anything and Chahal didn't do anything. If I remember the squad correctly, I think they're the only 2 people who played no role in this game.
And of course, Virat. But Virat wasn't.
Virat, of course. Yeah, Virat for a reason. Like Thala for a reason.
He has nothing to do with this game.
Anytime somebody says for a reason, I have to say Thala.
You have to say Thala
for a reason. Like it's just, even in office, if somebody says, let's look at this quarter's result for this reason, Thala. Even if you whisper it.
You just say it under your breath. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
Okay. But yeah, I'm looking at the stats, and Dubey actually bowled better than Bumrah, right? Like, that's pretty funny. Yeah. But should we just get into selection? There's nothing to talk about from the Bangladesh team's perspective.
Okay, so yes, fantastic match, good outing, etc. Now let's get into what does it mean for selection, what does it mean for batting order, and what do you think the final playing 11 will be against Ireland? And do you think that's the final one, or it reserves the right to change over the course of the tournament? So let's get into it.
Yeah, so you're asking me about the playing 11?
Yeah.
So I would just want to say one thing before I go down the playing 11. I think the 2 debates are going to be, can Dubey, Pandya and Jaddu bowl 8 overs? Okay. Yeah.
In which case, sorry, your point is if they can bowl 8, then you have 3 bowlers.
Yeah.
Right? So then you're playing them 6, 7, 8.
Exactly.
And if you're batting Jadeja as low as 8, then and Kuldeep theoretically potentially at 9, which by the way, somebody should go back, because this was exactly what I had said. What I said is you get depth of options if you can play those 3 guys, if you can play all 3 of them. And you guys had been saying Dubey's backup, Hardik, etc. But for me, if you can play all 3 and Dubey can even give you a bowling option.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm on the same opinion. If the 3 of them...
But you weren't like 4 weeks ago when we were doing previews. I'm the one who said it. You guys didn't have him in your life. We should go back and put it. But anyway.
I have had Dubey in my
You haven't had... No, yeah, you have, but you haven't had all 3.
Maybe not all 3, because that time we were all upset with Hardik, right? For asking Rohit.
Okay, but sorry.
What I'm saying is, I think if those 3 can bowl 8 overs, and Jaddu will bowl 4, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
so you're basically talking about between Hardik and Dubey, whoever has the worst day bowls 1 and the other bowls 3, right?
And or if they're both having great days and
2,
one of the full-time bowlers or not, then you have an option, right? So
yeah, exactly. Suppose we've talked about Kuldeep as a momentum bowler, right? If he gets hit for 25 runs in his first over,
just don't finish him.
Then you just don't finish him, right?
Yeah.
So it's ideally I would like that. Okay. Now, so it's Rohit, Kohli, Pant.
And so let me just pause there for a second.
Yeah, because it's going to get confusing.
Is that opening combination a done deal? Was it a done deal as recently as 4 weeks ago? I mean, how do you
look now? The way I think about it is that if you play this combination that I just spoke about, you can have Jaiswal up top and tell him just go after it.
Okay.
So then you got Rohit, Jaiswal, Kohli, Sky, Pant.
Okay.
Dubey, Hardik, Jaddu, Kuldeep, Arshdeep, and
Bumrah. Okay, so just to run through, obviously no Chahal, which is fine. If the pitches don't spin, you can't have that. No Akshar, which is fine. I think you're saying Akshar is potentially that 6, 7, 8. He can slot in as one of the 3 all-rounders if needed, but fine. And no Siraj, which I also think is not that surprising.
Yeah.
Especially looking at the one. Okay.
So I'm saying...
And Samson. Samson's the 4th name.
Samson, yeah. So the thing is, what happens is in this, then you start thinking, are Hardik, Dubey and Jadeja batting too low? Right? Is Pant batting too low? Sky can't change his position. He has to be 4. So there are lots of questions with this as well. But I just feel like this is a strong team, given what issues we've had in the past, how T20 works. If you back till 8, and remember a lot of the times, whether it's 2019 finals or semi-finals or, Champions Trophy finals, our number 5 and 6 fight back.
Yeah.
But there's no 7 and 8.
Yeah. Because 6 was Jadeja in many cases,
that's
right?
what I'm saying. There's no 7 and 8. So you gotta think. Now, I think that's the ideal. Now, why don't you give me a more realistic 11?
I think it feels like the writing is on the wall that Rohit and Kohli will open. And I'm personally okay with that, but I know a lot of people aren't, because you can absolutely see a situation where the power play is done and we're at 27 or 34, 35 for 0 in 6 overs. And you're saying, what is happening? We have those firepower in the back end, but these two guys couldn't get going. I also think Rohit and Kohli have batted so much together. I should pull their stats, which I can't do in real time, but I should pull their stats on batting together. But over the years, we talked this a lot, the difference as they've aged is that Kohli can still convert anything into a single and any single into a double, and Rohit just can't. And so, for me,
especially after having halal guys at 4 a.m.
I mean, man, he's looking like he's... he looks like he's...
I get that New York food is good.
New York food is amazing, but that's for people like you and me to go there, not the captain of the number 1 ranked side of
He looked like he had a good 1 week of food.
Yeah. I mean, so I think...
are you in favor of them opening?
Man, it's hard. I feel hard done for Jaiswal, but I think they will open.
So I think Rohit will go for it no matter what, whether he has 8 batsmen or 7 batsmen or 6 batsmen.
Yeah,
I think Rohit is going to go for it. I think Kohli needs the new ball now for his stroke play, and that's why I think realistically that looks more like.
So I think I'm going a slightly different direction than you. Then I think you have Rohit Kohli, and then I think they do play Samson at 3. I don't think one failure in a warm-up match eliminates him. They selected him, they back him. You don't change Sky from 4. You keep Pant at 5. Then you go, the 6, 7, 8 is Shivam, Hardik, Jadeja in whatever order you need structure. Them. Yeah. And again, Akshar could slot in. If you happen to find a pitch that is spinning a lot, then maybe you don't need both Shivam and Hardik. Maybe you drop one of them.
Because Hardik is vice captain.
Yeah, but it seems silly to drop Shivam for Akshar. Like, that's a downgrade in your batting, right? Maybe you drop Jadeja to bring in Akshar to give you a different spinning option. And then your 9, 10, 11 will be Kuldeep. I'm saying Bumrah and Arshdeep. Now, again, there's so much recency bias because Siraj got selected and you could see him making it. But yeah, that's, I think, how it's going to shake out. With the wild card being if Samson doesn't play, Jaiswal could. But to me, it's absolutely unfair to put Samson as an opener. He played at 3 all IPL. He had a great IPL. Suddenly you send him to face the new ball. So for me, I think that's the squad with if Jaiswal comes in, Samson probably misses out at 3, and then Kohli gets bumped down to 3.
Interesting. So basically, both of us are saying the same thing. It's just about whether Kohli opens. That's literally the only difference. Yeah.
It's Kohli opening and no Jaiswal, or Kohli at 3 and no Samson.
Yeah, that's it. So that's not bad. We've got pretty much 10 out of 11 that we want to see. And something tells me they will go with this, right? Because Dubey just bowled so well. Yeah. And if you don't bowl Dubey against your Ireland and USA and Canada's, then when are you going to bowl him? So I think they'll do this. I feel bad that he didn't bowl enough for CSK. I mean, Dubey as an impact player is just ridiculous for me.
Yeah.
Given what he can do and what we should be grooming him to do. But I hope this is the start.
Any thoughts on the bowlers finally before we wrap up? Anything? Do you see Siraj playing a role? Do you see Chahal playing a role either instead of Kuldeep or as a third potential spinner? Because theoretically, if you can get 12 overs out of Hardik, Dubey and Bumrah, you need Arshdeep. If they travel to the West Indies and hit a very, very big spinning wicket, is Chahal a bigger asset than an Arshdeep?
Sure, on the day you can, but I think as a left-arm seamer to pair with Bumrah, I think Arshdeep is going to get priority. I think if Kuldeep is out of form, I think you'll see Chahal come in immediately.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, it still worries me, obviously, that without the Rinkus of the world, we don't have the firepower that we need lower down. It helps tremendously to have seen Hardik hit those 3 sixes, but he had a very, very rough season.
Yeah, he did.
All IPL.
And Jadeja also, as good as he is, as he's become older, he's very good at steering the ship.
Yeah, he knocks the singles, yeah.
Yes, he hit 10 off 2 balls in the final for Thala and all of that, but it's how often does this happen?
Yeah.
So he can hit the sixes, but if Jadeja's playing at 8 and Jadeja and Pandya are both not the biggest hitters, then it's there are gaps. Like, it's not an easy decision.
Yeah. All right, Varun, let's run through. Then Ireland, do you see India gets the win pretty easily? Or do you think it's going to be a tough game?
No, I think this should be pretty easy.
Pakistan, I mean,
just because of the tension, it'll be slightly more stressful, but it'll be.
Does Kohli do some heroics again against Pakistan? Are we ready for that? Is it? Yeah,
I'm sure. I hope it doesn't need to come to that, but yes.
I hope we don't need heroics either. And then the US and Canada, theoretically, so India might end top of the group, is what
I do think so. And it's also been announced that no matter where India end, their matches will be the 8 p.m. IST.
Yeah, I mean, the predictability. You need the predictability to be able to schedule advertising, etc. So it's unfortunate, but it is the way it is when you have so much dominance in terms of viewership and revenue coming from one country.
Yep.
Right, Varun, I think we did it. I think we covered most of it. Obviously, we would love to get into more on each group, but we didn't have the time to do that today. As we record this, it's looking like Namibia will pick up their first points against Oman because Oman only made 104 all out. Lots of great games ahead of us, right? Looking forward to this week. You have a doubleheader Monday, doubleheader Tuesday, tripleheader Wednesday, and I'm looking at my time zone, so maybe this is different, etc. And then you have another tripleheader Friday. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to watch. Lots and lots of great cricket. Stay tuned for our listeners. Watch the associate games, even if some are associates, some are just smaller teams, but watch the games. It's so much fun. The quality is great. And if you're local to New York, Dallas, Miami, grab a ticket and go to any of these games, because sometimes for the smaller teams, the games are pretty cheap and we want to make sure those stands are full so we can have bigger, better World Cups going forward. Varun, this has been a lot of fun. By the time we're back next week, India would have played Pakistan.
Yeah.
Are you mentally ready for that?
I mean, it'll take some time to gear up. I'm glad they're playing Ireland first, because usually Pakistan is the first match of the tournament.
It had to be on a weekend.
So I'm glad that they've got a little bit of time to kind of ease into it. But yes, really looking forward to it.
It's going to be great. Like I said in the middle, for everybody, follow us at One Tip One Hand on all the social medias, Twitters, Facebook, Instagram, all of the above. We're on YouTube, where if you're listening to this, you can watch us on YouTube and get to see our reactions in real time. If you're on YouTube, leave us a like, hit the like button, hit a subscribe button, or if you're on your podcast app, leave us a 5-star review. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. It is World Cup season. It's back. It's here. And we will see you next week at the culmination of India versus Pakistan, either for a kind of disappointed episode or for another celebratory episode where we show up wearing our jerseys. So only time will tell how that turns out. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, signing off.